The Okoro dining room was a monument to old money and current despair. Chandeliers cast geometric light onto the perfectly set table, reflecting the cold distance between mother and son. Ngozi Okoro, 65, watched Chinedu, 36, across the polished mahogany. Chinedu was successful, sharp, and emotionally hollow. He worked relentlessly, building the family empire while burying his own life. Ngozi laid her fork down, the delicate clink echoing in the vast space. "Chinedu," she began, her voice gentle. Chinedu stopped eating, his posture immediately wary. "Yes, mother? The company reports are excellent. You manage it flawlessly." Ngozi paused, the difficult question hanging in the silence. "But I worry about the rest of your life, the part that isn't about acquisitions or market strategy. When will you consider marriage?" Chinedu took a slow, deliberate breath. "Why would I, mother? To find someone else who will spend 6 months pretending to be in love with me before asking about the inheritance schedule." The bitterness in his voice was thick. It was always the same response, fueled by the betrayal of his ex-girlfriend, Funto. "Funto was one woman, Chinedu. She doesn't represent every person on earth," Ngozi argued softly. "She represents the only kind of person who approaches me," Chinedu corrected, his eyes hard. "They see the Okoro name first. They see the balance sheet. Their love is transactional. Since I cannot contract for sincerity, I will not engage. It is simply safer." He pushed his plate away, his meal unfinished, and stood up. "Good night, mother. I have an early meeting." Ngozi watched him go. He was successful, but he was fundamentally broken. The wealth that should have given him freedom had instead built a prison of cynicism around his heart. All her attempts to introduce him to genuine people had failed. The Okoro name was always a barrier, not a bridge. Sitting alone, Ngozi made a decision. Chinedu needed proof. He needed to see, with absolute certainty, that unconditional kindness still existed. She had to find a person whose character was so pure that they would offer help to someone who could offer absolutely nothing in return. She decided to remove the barrier of her own wealth. She would disappear and look for sincerity as a nobody. The next day, Ngozi began her transformation. She called her assistant and provided instructions about a necessary immediate retreat for creative reflection, emphasizing that she was not to be disturbed for any non-emergency reason. She packed a small canvas bag with only a few necessities. She changed out of her fine silk trousers and cashmeres and into old, loose-fitting denim and a worn, thick cotton jacket she found in storage. She removed her custom jewelry, left her perfectly coiffed hair unstyled, and avoided makeup. Ngozi Okoro, the billionaire heiress and philanthropist, vanished. What remained was a woman who looked simply like a tired, older person who had seen difficult times. She left the Okoro mansion via a rear entrance, stepping out into the anonymity of the city. She chose a district far from the usual orbit of the Okoro family, a place where people lived paycheck to paycheck. She carried a small amount of cash, enough to buy cheap food, but not enough to suggest independence. Her first 2 days were spent observing. She sat in public spaces, feeling the profound shift in how she was perceived. When she dressed expensively, people deferred to her. Now they ignored her entirely. She was invisible, a ghost in the urban landscape. This confirmed Chinedu's worst fears. If you had no economic value, you had no social value. She needed to set the stage for her test. She found a quiet bench near a busy but not trendy coffee shop called The Daily Grind. She settled onto the hard seat, looking suitably weary and forlorn. The smell of fresh coffee and pastries was a torment, but she didn't move. She needed to look genuinely poor and helpless, eliminating the possibility of expectation. She waited, watching the door of the cafe, hoping to see a glimpse of uncalculated goodness. Ngozi spent the third morning entirely focused on the front window of The Daily Grind. She watched the employees, particularly a young woman named Amara. Amara was efficient, but she also maintained a calm composure that Ngozi rarely saw in the high-pressure environments of the financial world. She didn't rush customers out, and she treated a noisy group of schoolchildren with the same politeness as the hurried business people. As the afternoon approached, the cafe emptied out. Ngozi deliberately pulled her worn jacket tighter, hunching her shoulders against the damp air. She looked across the street, letting her expression settle into a look of quiet resignation. Amara finished cleaning the countertop and then came outside to empty a waste bin. She noticed Ngozi immediately. She didn't look away or hurry past. She simply saw her. Amara finished her task, wiped her hands, and then walked toward the bench, holding a paper cup and a small wrapped croissant. "Excuse me, ma'am," Amara said gently. Ngozi looked up, surprised by the direct address. "It's starting to get cold, and the almond croissant I saved is still warm," Amara said, offering the items. "And a nice cup of ginger tea. Please take them." Ngozi hesitated. She had anticipated this, but facing the pure gesture was disarming. I cannot pay you," Ngozi said, pushing the test to its limit. "I have no money." Amara smiled, a small, sincere lift of the corners of her mouth. "I know. It's a gift. It was going to be thrown away, and you look like you need it more than the bin does." She placed the food and a drink directly into Ngozi's hands. "Just a little warmth. Don't worry about anything else." She turned to go, but Ngozi stopped her. "Why?" Emotional breath. "Why give something for nothing?" Amara shrugged, looking genuinely puzzled by the question. "Because you're outside and I'm inside. It's that simple. Please enjoy the tea, Mom." She nodded and returned to her work. Ngozi sat watching her go, utterly stunned. Amara had seen the poverty, accepted the inability to pay, and offered comfort anyway. It was not a gesture for show. The street was deserted. It was a pure, uncalculated exchange of human kindness. Chinedu's cynicism felt suddenly fragile. Ngozi sipped the warm tea, a warmth she hadn't felt in years spreading through her. The days turned into a routine. Ngozi continued her surveillance on the bench, and Amara continued her quiet acts of charity. Every day, the poor old woman received a leftover meal or a warm drink, always given with the same gentle respect. Ngozi started calling herself Iwaya Nini to Amara, offering vague stories about losing her husband and her home. Amara never pried. She simply listened, sometimes sharing her own small dreams of opening a flower shop. Ngozi saw not just kindness, but resilience and principled integrity. Amara was, she asked, the question escaping on an, content with her small life, not envious of those who had more. One evening, a sudden brutal thunderstorm broke over the city. Ngozi was huddled under the cafe's small awning, soaked and shivering, the thin jacket offering no protection. Amara appeared at the cafe door, her face a mask of concern. She came out, standing in the rain. "Ayanena, this won't do," Amara insisted over the roar of the rain. "It's freezing. You can't stay out here tonight." Ngozi knew this was the ultimate test. "I'll be fine. I've found shelter before." "Not in this weather," Amara said firmly. "I live just 2 blocks over. It's a small place, but it's dry and I have a sofa. You can stay the night. Please, I can't leave you out here." Inviting a strange poor woman into her home was a significant risk. It was a massive generosity, far beyond the cost of a croissant. Ngozi gave in, realizing that to refuse the offer was to negate its purity. "Amara, I don't know how I can ever repay you," she said, her voice strained. "Just don't get sick, and that's repayment enough," Amara replied, taking her arm gently. Amara's apartment was small, spotless, and cozy. It smelled of vanilla and clean linen. She immediately brought Ngozi a fresh towel and one of her own old soft sweaters. She heated a bowl of homemade vegetable stew. As Ngozi sat on the clean sofa, wrapped in a warm blanket, she watched Amara move around the room. There was no pretense, no subtle search for reward. Amara made a simple meal, asked simple questions, and gave simple comfort. Ngozi felt a powerful surge of emotion. She was one of the wealthiest people in the city, and yet this tiny apartment, with its genuine warmth and safety, felt more valuable than her own empty mansion. Amara's character was undeniable. She was the one. She was the proof Chinedu needed. The next morning, Ngozi left Amara's apartment early, making sure the sofa was neatly folded and leaving in a short, anonymous note thanking her for the safe harbor. Her driver met her in a discreet location, and she was quickly returned to the opulence of the Okoro mansion. The return was jarring. The silence of the mansion was oppressive after the warmth of Amara's small home. She showered, dressed in her tailored suit, and immediately got to work. transforming Iwaya Nene's discovery into Ngozi Okoro's strategy. She called the head of the city's largest business development fund, a group she heavily endowed. She framed the opportunity carefully. "I have a candidate for the Small Business Incubator program," Ngozi stated, her voice returning to its executive clarity. "A young woman, Amara Eze, with a plan for a flower shop. I want her to have immediate, full funding, mentorship, and a premium retail space. The key requirement, the space must be in the high-traffic area near the new Okoro Tower headquarters." She created a believable fiction. The Ngozi Okoro Foundation was launching a new initiative focusing on female-led retail startups. The plan was not manipulation, it was simply creating a collision point. She had to place Amara in Chinedu's orbit and let Amara's genuine light penetrate his darkness. That evening, Chinedu came home late. He was reviewing market projections over dinner. Ngozi watched him, noticing the familiar lines of stress around his eyes. "I have been out lately, Chinedu," Ngozi said, testing the waters. "It's true, I have been exploring the city outside of our usual perimeter." Chinedu looked up, curiosity finally breaking through his focus. "You seem different, mother. You didn't look stressed. I thought perhaps it was a secret deal." Ngozi smiled, a real, unguarded smile she hadn't felt in years. "No secret deals, son. Just a personal exploration. I met someone." Chinedu's attention snapped completely to her. "Met someone? You mean a friend? A colleague?" "I mean a person," Ngozi clarified, letting the warmth touch her eyes. "A remarkable young woman who reminded me that genuine human feeling still exists. Someone whose character is utterly pure." Chinedu looked stunned, then a small, hesitant smile formed on his lips. "Well, that is wonderful, mother. You haven't been this happy in a very long time. It suits you." Ngozi felt relief wash over her. The warmth was spreading. Even Chinedu's cynical exterior could not withstand the sight of his mother's genuine happiness. She knew she was on the right path. Amara's life changed rapidly. Within days, she had been contacted by the Ngozi Okoro Foundation. She signed paperwork, met mentors, and was given the keys to a beautiful retail space near the financial district. She named it the Daily Bloom. She kept her word, finding an old woman on a city bench and offering her the last of her saved croissant. Ngozi maintained the connection, occasionally visiting Amara at the old cafe bench, now in her designer clothes but with a humble demeanor, telling Amara she had found her own purpose by helping others. Amara's excitement over her new venture was overshadowed, however, by the immediate hostility from her live-in boyfriend, Emeka. Emeka was consumed by ambition and deeply resentful of his lack of wealth. He viewed Amara as a pawn in his pursuit of an easy life. Emeka stormed into their small apartment late one evening after hearing rumors of Amara's new benefactor. "What is this charity nonsense?" Emeka demanded, throwing his coat onto a chair. "They say you got a boutique from some rich old woman. What did you promise them? What kind of deal did you make?" "I promised nothing, Emeka," Amara replied, arranging a box of supplies for the shop. "The foundation selected me based on my business plan. It's an investment in a startup." "An investment in you," Emeka sneered. "You should be using this access to network, to meet the real power players, not setting up a flower shop. You need to leverage your position and get us out of this miserable life." Amara finally straightened, her patience exhausted. "I am not leveraging anything. I am working. I am looking for a real one. I won't chase money, and I am not looking for an easy life status." Emeka's face twisted with anger. He saw her dignity as a roadblock. He had planned on her success being his ticket out, and her refusal to play his game was a personal betrayal. "You're an idiot," he spat. "You throw away a free pass to wealth to sell daisies. You'll regret this when you realize you could have been a millionaire's wife instead of a florist." The argument was a clear line in the sand. Amara chose dignity. Emeka chose greed. She knew then the relationship was finished. Amara told Emeka to leave that night. The request sparked a furious response. Emeka, cornered and losing his financial control over her, refused. He sulked, he raged, and he threatened to ruin the launch of her new shop. The next morning, Amara went to the Daily Bloom, determined to change the locks immediately. Upon her return, She focused on the clean, earthy scent of her fresh flowers, trying to ignore the anxiety churning in her stomach. She returned to the apartment in the late afternoon. Emeka was still there, stuffing his belongings into cheap duffel bags, his face flushed and hostile. "So the little florist is kicking me out," he snarled, throwing a bag against the wall. "We are finished, Emeka," Amara said calmly. "Please finish packing and leave." Emeka slammed the duffel bag down and crossed the small room in 3 angry strides, grabbing her arm in a punishing grip. "You think you're so high and mighty with your charity funding? You're still just a cafe worker, Amara. Nothing more." The squeeze was tight, a clear signal of control and aggression that terrified her. She knew then that she was dealing with a dangerous instability. She did not fight, but looked him square in the eye with cold contempt. "Let go of me, Emeka," she commanded, her voice quiet but absolute. He released her abruptly, shocked by the lack of fear in her gaze. The aggression evaporated, replaced by self-pity and shame. He finished packing in silence and finally, thank goodness, walked out the door, muttering a final hollow threat. Amara leaned against the door after the lock clicked, breathing heavily. Her arm was already darkening where he had grabbed her. She sank onto the sofa, trembling with exhaustion and relief. She was free, but the physical hurt was a painful reminder of how close she had come to being truly damaged. She would never allow him back. Ngozi received a call later that day from the foundation manager. The report was concise and alarming. Amara Eze had arrived at the boutique with clear signs of injury on her arm and was visibly shaken. Ngozi's protective fury was immediate and absolute. The kindness she had championed, the woman she had worked so hard to elevate, had been physically hurt by a hostile man. Emeka. Ngozi had known his name, but not his nature. She did not call the police, fearing that a formal investigation would terrify Amara and drag her through public court. She needed swift, quiet, and overwhelming deterrence. Ngozi called her chief legal counsel, a man who specialized in high-level private protection and discreet legal warnings. Her voice was ice. "I need an immediate private intervention," Ngozi instructed, giving Emeka's details. "A firm, non-negotiable warning. He has threatened and physically harmed an associate of mine. He is to be informed that any further contact, harassment, or attempt to approach her will result in immediate public legal action from a firm representing an entity with unlimited resources." The threat was subtle but terrifyingly credible, backed by the implicit weight of the Okoro empire. Within 2 hours, 2 impeccably dressed legal operatives visited Emeka. Later that evening, Amara was organizing a delivery of new vases when her phone rang. It was Emeka, calling from a blocked number. His voice was completely broken, high-pitched with terror. "What did you do?" he demanded. "Who is she? 2 lawyers came here, Amara. They didn't arrest me. They just delivered a message. They knew everything. The bruise, the arm. They said if I even look in your direction again, they will destroy me. They used the words unlimited resources, Amara. Who is your protection?" Amara froze. The words echoed the power she had witnessed firsthand. "I didn't call anyone, Emeka," she replied, though she knew the answer. "Don't lie. They said you were protected by a powerful client, a woman who had invested in you. I swear I'll never touch you again. Just keep them away from me." Emeka hung up, the sound of his fear still ringing in her ear. Amara slowly set the phone down. Unlimited resources, a powerful client. The only woman in her life who knew the full story, the one she had helped when she was cold and wet, was Iya Nene. But how could Iya Nene, the lonely old woman she had sheltered, command lawyers of that stature? Amara finally understood. Iya Nene was not who she claimed to be. Ngozi knew the intervention was the final card she could play without revealing the entire truth. She decided it was time. She could not ask Amara to pursue a future with Chinedu while a giant lie sat at the base of their connection. The next day, Ngozi visited the Daily Bloom, buying a large spray of vibrant red snapdragons. She wore a simple, elegant day dress that confirmed her status as a wealthy client, but she maintained her quiet, kind demeanor. "Amara, I have wonderful news," Ngozi said, placing the flowers on the counter. "My good friend, the one who helped me get my life back on track, is moving overseas and needs a house sitter. It is a magnificent property, and I need to show it to someone before I take it over. Would you have lunch with me tomorrow? She handed Amara a heavy embossed card with a sprawling address on it. Beneath the address, Ngozi had handwritten a brief note. From your friend, Iwaya Nene. Amara looked at the card, then at Ngozi. The woman standing before her was clearly refined, educated and effortlessly wealthy. She was not a vagrant, she was a master strategist. Amara accepted the invitation. She wanted the truth, and she knew this woman, this powerful, mysterious friend, deserved the opportunity to explain her beautiful deception. The next afternoon, Amara took a taxi to the address. As the massive wrought iron gate swung open to reveal a long manicured drive leading to a stone mansion, Amara understood. This was not a friend's place, this was the pinnacle of wealth. A uniformed attendant led her to the front door. Ngozi Okoro, dressed in a stunning, tailored suit, stood waiting in the marble foyer. She no longer looked like Iwaya Nene. She looked like the formidable woman who had quietly crushed Emeka's threats. "Welcome, Amara," Ngozi said, her voice carrying the gentle but undeniable authority of influence. Amara walked into the grand foyer, her head reeling but her gaze steady. She looked at the marble floors, the sweeping staircase, and finally back at Ngozi. "There is no house-sitter, is there?" Amara asked quietly. "No, Amara," Ngozi confirmed. "This is my home. I am Ngozi Okoro." She led Amara into a beautiful quiet library, filled with sunlight and the scent of old paper. Ngozi offered her a seat and then sat opposite her, ready to confess. "The deception was necessary, Amara. I understand if you are angry, but please hear my reason," Ngozi began. She laid out the entire story, starting with the devastating betrayal Chinedu had suffered at the hands of Funto. She explained how her son had come to believe that love was merely a financial transaction and how his cynicism was destroying his life. "I had to prove him wrong," Ngozi confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "I needed to find one person whose kindness was pure, unconditional, and entirely unmotivated by my identity or my wealth. I had to become nobody and see who would still give me something." Ngozi looked directly at Amara. "You gave me food when I was cold. You gave me shelter when I was soaked. You risked your own safety for a stranger who had no means of repaying you. You passed the test, Amara. You are the proof that integrity still exists." Amara listened, the shock dissolving into a deep understanding. She saw the love of a mother, desperate to save her son. She wasn't angry, she was profoundly touched. "So you engineered my flower shop too?" Amara asked. "I engineered the circumstance. I moved you into his orbit," Ngozi admitted. "I simply wanted to put my son next to genuine light and see if it could heal his heart." Ngozi stood up. "I need you to meet him now. Please. Speak to him with the same honesty you showed Iwaya Nene on the bench." Ngozi opened the library door and Chinedu walked in. He was professional and courteous, immediately extending his hand to Amara. "Amara Eze, this is my son, Chinedu." Ngozi introduced them. "Chinedu, Amara is the person who reminded me that sincerity is the greatest wealth." Ngozi gave them a small, encouraging smile and left, closing the door quietly. Chinedu and Amara were left alone in the beautiful, silent room. Chinedu was expecting a business partner. He was confronted by a woman who knew the deepest secret of his past and the fragile hope of his future. "Hello, Amara," Chinedu said. "My mother has been quite mysterious about you. She seems happier than I have seen her in years." "Hello, Chinedu. Your mother is a very determined woman," Amara replied, choosing her words carefully. She did not reveal the test. She spoke to him as the flower shop owner, the recipient of his mother's kindness. They talked easily, moving from the growth of her boutique to his complicated business strategies. Chinedu found himself captivated. Amara spoke with a directness and lack of pretension that was refreshing. There was no maneuvering, no flattery, only genuine interest and simple honesty. They agreed to be friends, starting with coffee meetings and simple lunches. Chinedu was slowly, almost unconsciously, lowering his guard. He was observing Amara the way his mother had observed him, seeing her consistent character in the face of small challenges. She was polite to waitstaff, focused on her business, and entirely unconcerned with his status. Amara's friendship helped Chinedu realize that Funto's betrayal was not universal. It was personal. He started to laugh again, a deep, genuine sound that shocked him the first time it happened. Amara's presence was a balm, a steady source of unconditional human warmth. Within a couple of months, Chinedu knew he trusted her entirely. He realized Amara was not chasing the Okoro name. She was simply chasing her own happiness, and he happened to be in the picture. One evening, on the veranda overlooking the city, Chinedu knelt down. "Amara, you are the most sincere person I have ever known," Chinedu said, holding a simple diamond ring. "You taught my mother that goodness exists, and you taught me that trust is possible. Marry me. Let's build a life that is as honest as you are." Amara, seeing the vulnerability and the sincerity in his eyes, said yes immediately. The news of Chinedu's engagement reached Funto almost instantly. The sight of Chinedu choosing a simple florist over her ambitious elegance sent her into a jealous, destructive rage. She was also desperate. She had recently given birth to a child whose real father, a married man, had cut her off and demanded silence. Cornered and ruined, Funto decided to use the baby as a weapon to destroy Chinedu's happiness. She arrived at Okoro Tower with the infant carrier. Chinedu met her in a private room, his demeanor instantly cold and wary. Funto put on a display of false sadness. "Chinedu, I'm so sorry to ruin your engagement, but this is your son. I didn't want to tell you, but I can't hide him anymore." Chinedu looked at the child, then back at Funto, unmoved. "That is a ridiculous, easily proven lie, Funto. We haven't been together in years." She launched her threat. "If you deny him, I will go to the media. I will say the Okoro heir abandoned his illegitimate child to marry a pauper. I will ruin your mother's reputation and crush your new fiancé." Chinedu remained calm. "I deny the claim entirely. I will call security now, and you will be escorted out. You can choose to leave quietly, or you can face the consequences of harassment." Funto, rattled by his lack of panic, snatched the carrier and fled, realizing she needed to hit Amara directly to destabilize the relationship. Funto found Amara at the Daily Bloom the next day. She walked in, confident and elegant, a jarring contrast to the peaceful atmosphere of the shop. "Amara," Funto greeted, her voice sugary and sharp, "I came here to warn you. You are marrying a man with an existing obligation." She showed Amara a picture of the baby. "This is Chinedu's son. He's trying to hide it from you. He's afraid of responsibility." Amara felt the familiar knot of pain, but she remembered Chinedu's faith. She looked at Funto, recognizing the raw, desperate jealousy beneath the false concern. Amara handed the photo back. "Thank you for your honesty, Funto, but I will not ask Chinedu about your story. I will tell him what I require." She looked at Funto with unwavering resolve. "You and Chinedu will submit to a DNA test. If the child is his, he will take responsibility. If it is not, this lie ends now and forever." Amara's demand for the DNA test was the final principled boundary. Chinedu immediately agreed, relieved that Amara's trust was based on truth, not blind faith. He mobilized his legal team to arrange the test. Funto panicked. The empirical proof threatened to expose her entire scheme and, more dangerously, the identity of the real father. She refused the test, claiming it was an insult to her integrity, effectively undermining her own claim. The lie was exposed, not by Chinedu's denial, but by Funto's refusal to prove the truth. The final blow to Funto came when the real father, seeing Chinedu's legal team in motion, immediately severed all contact and threatened Funto with total ruin if she ever spoke his name. Cornered, ruined, and defeated, Funto watched Chinedu and Amara proceed with their quiet, loving wedding. 2 weeks after the ceremony, Chinedu received a call. It was Funto. Her voice was broken and defeated. "Chinedu, the child is not yours." "He was never yours," she confessed, weeping. "I lied out of jealousy. I wanted to destroy your happiness because I couldn't have it." Chinedu listened, his face grim. The act was cruel, but the confession was necessary. "Thank you for the truth, Funto," Chinedu said, his voice flat. He paused, making the final defining choice for his future peace. "I forgive you for my own sake, but that is the end. You will never contact me, my mother, or Amara again. If you attempt it, my lawyers will act." He hung up the phone, severing the last tie to his painful past. Chinedu found Amara in the garden, arranging flowers. He walked up to her and simply held her, resting his cheek against her hair. "It is over," he murmured. "The lie is finished." Amara squeezed his hand. "I know. Now we can live the truth." Ngozi Okoro watched them from a window, her heart full. Her dangerous gamble had paid off. Chinedu's cynicism was gone, replaced by a gentle, enduring trust. He had learned that true kindness existed, and he had built his happiness upon it. Ngozi realized her purpose had not been to run an empire, but to save her son's heart. Chinedu and Amara built their home on the foundation of honesty and quiet resilience. Amara's sincere character, once tested on a cold city bench, proved to be the strongest force that wealth could never buy, and which betrayal could never destroy.